seated. So today we have some quick announcements for you, but before we get into that, we want to introduce this faith that we call Unitarian Universalism to you, where we not only have a mission in this church to boldly grow what? Compassion, justice, and joy, but we're also a church where we believe in the priesthood and prophethood of all believers, that we all in here have a voice, and that voice we use to expand what we call an open source religion, where we're open at the top and we welcome all kinds of beliefs and people of principles and goodwill and aloha and of value. You're all welcome here. And speaking of open source technology, anybody have a smartphone with them? I invite you to take a moment to check in on Squarespace, not Squarespace, Foursquare, well, whatever. Foursquare. I'm mixing metaphors here, aren't I? Instagram, take a picture of the band or something like that and send it to your friends. Facebook, Twitter, whatever your social media of choice is. Let your friends know that you're worshiping here. And while you're at it, make sure to give us 5 stars, right? And after that, however, we invite you to put your phone on worship mode so that we could lessen the distractions that are going on here. All right, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, we have Dr. Josh Searle-White, who is the Congregational Life Staff of the Pacific Central District and the Pacific Western region of our denomination. And Josh was a professor before at Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania. And you better be careful what you say around him, because he does have a Doctor of Psychology degree. So he'll psychoanalyze you if you say the wrong things. What do you call it? And he's written several books, including this one called Magic Wanda's Travel Emporium, Tales of Love, Hate, and Things in Between. So you're going to want to check this out. It's available on Skinner House, which is on our denomination's website. And he wrote another book called something nationalism, The Psychology of Nationalism, which can be found on Amazon.com. So please help me in welcoming and saying Eko Momai to Dr. Josh Searle-White. All right, with that, we continue in our service. As Josh lights our chalice for us. Actually, Josh, would you mind if I ask one of our keikis to do it? Who would like to light the chalice this morning? All right, go for it, Noah. As Noah lights the chalice for us, please join me in saying, we light this chalice with the embers of compassion. We light this chalice with the torch of justice. We light this chalice with the radiance of joy.
Okay, let me tell you a little bit about the history of this old folk tale called Stone Soup. It's traditionally, people believe it started in Portugal, the first story of stone soup. In some countries, they call it nail soup, and some places they have button soup. But all these things are able to make soup, believe it or not. And it's a story about cooperation and generosity. And we're going to do stone soup today, and the kids are going to help with the story. And this one takes place in, where should we have it? In Hawaii, maybe, huh? Not in Portugal, not in Russia, not in Scandinavia, where they all do what? Where? Antarctica. I don't know what they would put in stone soup in Antarctica. Penguin soup? No. They're not in, okay, no. Okay, well, one day, someone who was very hungry was walking along the path, and he saw a village in the distance. And all he had with him was a big pot and a spoon. And he came to a spring, and he filled up the pot with some water, and he started a fire under it. And he looked around for some stones. And he was near the Unitarian Church, where they have been using these sweet, sweet stones for almost more than 30 years, I think. And so he found these juicy stones around the church, and he put them in the pot. And along came a little boy named Owen. And he said,
"What are you doing?"
"Oh, I'm making some nice stone soup, but it's not quite ready. It could use some other things. Do you want to help out?"
"Yes."
"What do you want to put in the soup?"
"Fish."
"Fish? Okay, you must have been fishing." So Owen brought some fish for the pot. And what else?
"A beet."
A nice beet from your garden? Thank you. Oh, this is getting better. And he said, Abi-yo-yo, Abi-yo-yo. And then along came Maggie. Hello.
Hi, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm making some soup from some delicious stones. Would you like to smell it?
Sure.
It could use something more, yeah?
Yeah,
What do you think?
it should. Do you want some kefir plant thing?
Oh, kefir lime leaves. These are delicious in stone soup. Thank you. And one at a time, little children from the Unitarian Church came up and brought something and asked what I was doing. Come on up, everybody, line up. And what do you have for the pot? Okay, celery. You want to throw it in? Thank you. What do you have?
"Lime."
A lime. Throw it in. It all makes stone soup all the more delicious. And what do you have?
"Oregano."
Yeah, throw it in. Oh, let's see if you can smell it. Oy, pepper. Thank you. What do you have?
"Onion."
Okay, this is going to be delicious. And what do you have?
"Mushroom."
Oh, yummy. You guys are all going to have the best stone soup today. And what do you have? Eggplant.
"Eggplant."
And what else?
"Sweet potato."
Oh, you all have been busy growing things on your farms, huh?
"I have a cabbage."
Cabbage. Oh, that's delicious. Noah. And Jack, what do you have?
"Broccoli and tomato."
Broccoli and tomatoes. Great. And what do you have?
Taro.
Taro. Oh, that's very good. You must have a nice farm. Thank you. And what do you have?
"Avocado."
Avocado. Okay, let's stir it up, stir it up. And then after about an hour, the soup smelled so good, and all the people from the Unitarian Church who were very hungry because they have been experiencing a lot of scarcity lately. And that means they didn't have enough. So we all shared together, and we made delicious stone soup for everybody. Thank you, everyone, for contributing to the soup.
Yes, we can make a bridge and sing our keiki off to their program. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Our opening words today come from Jalaluddin Rumi. That's a tongue twister. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Please join me in this responsive reading. Thou that hearest, listen. In the beginning is the cry, inarticulate, inchoate, essential, the primal cry of desire. Much later comes the word, ordered, various, pattern on our glass. Oh, how we must listen to hear the wanting within the word. Oh, listen to hear the meaning and soul of what is said. The first act of a prophet is to hear one's own first cry. In silence, let us listen. Desire is good, and longing is the first prayer. Let us bless ourselves with the knowing, and bless each other with the words that are true. And let us be glad.
There's a congregation member that I know who used to say, I speak better extemporaneously when I write it down first. so that's what we've done here. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. I'm thrilled. As Jonathan mentioned, I work for the Unitarian Universalist Association as a staff member, and what that means is that I'm part of the crowd that reaches out to our congregations and thinks about them and comes and visits. And in my case, I work in the Pacific Central District, which is Northern California, Northern Nevada, and you. And you may feel isolated out here, but let me tell you, we think about you all the time. So from our end anyway, you're right there in the fold with us. But it's a different thing, obviously, to be able to actually come here and talk with you and kind of join you for this moment. So I'm thrilled about that. And I know that you're well, first I did want to say, I didn't ask Jennifer to plug my books like that. But I have to say, The Psychology of Nationalism is the perfect gift for every occasion. So anyway, I know that your theme this month is prophecy, or prophetic women and men and prophetic voices. And so I thought, as a way of joining together with you on this path, I'd talk a little bit about that, at least as best as I know. Prophecy is an interesting thing because, our second source is that we draw on the words of prophetic women and men, and yet I don't think I've ever given it as much thought as perhaps I need to. And at its basic level, it's not surprising to all of us that prophecy is sort of speaking out. It's standing up, seeing what's going on, and speaking out and calling the people to a better way. It's not a popular profession because people who do real prophecy tend to get strung up in one way or another. They get put in stocks, they get beaten, they get crucified, they get burned at the stake. But in fact, it's actually much more than that. Being an incisive social commentator, might get you a spot on NPR, but it doesn't really get you written up in the Bible as a prophet, right? There's something else that's happening. And that's really what I want to talk about, is that particular experience that prophets have that allows them to be who they are and speak the way they do. And for me, well, I guess the way I found this out is by reading some of the lives of prophets. I mean, if you read them, most people who are called prophets started out as, a carpenter or a shepherd or some sort of, kind of regular person. Or if they were born high like the Buddha was, they kind of renounced that position. And then they go through a period of searching. In the case of the Buddha, of course, he had many adventures, and then eventually he sat down underneath the Bodhi tree, and he was assaulted by all the forces of illusion, and eventually became enlightened, which meant that he let go of craving and found an end to suffering. Quite amazing. There was another person, Hildegard of Bingen, who's a 12th century mystic that many of you may know about, who her visions and her experiences came in these visions of light and warmth and heat that she kind of associated with, the coming of the Spirit. And so all of the different experiences that prophets have, these religious experiences, they describe them differently depending on what culture they live in and what their personality is like. But underneath all of them is a common theme, which is they realize there's some connection between them and everything else. Okay, now it might be a connection, might come through a connection with the natural world, it might come from a connection with God, it might come from a connection with other human beings, but whatever it is, it's always that sense that I'm not the only show in town. You know, something else is happening, and I'm kind of a part of it, and I don't quite understand it, but it's quite magnificent. You know, I was thinking about this experience that I had once listening to the Mahler Second Symphony, where this orchestra is playing, and there's all this chaos and crashing around, and at one moment there's kind of this huge suspension, and then the choir comes in, and it's like I felt somehow like I'd been like lifted up almost physically, and tears started to come out of my eyes, and it was an experience of pure beauty to me that incorporated both loneliness and ultimate connection. And so for me, that was one of these experiences, like, wow, something is really happening here that I'm a part of. It was joyous, it was wrenching, but it changed me forever. And I think that's what happens with prophets. I'm certainly not putting myself in the class of these people, but that's kind of the essence of what happens. They have these experiences, and then what's important is when a prophet speaks, they speak not on behalf of themselves, but on behalf of that. Right? So they might conceptualize it as the Hebrew prophets did on speaking on behalf of God, or they might conceptualize it as speaking on behalf of the love of the universe. Whatever it is, it's speaking from some bigger place. And so what happens is then, typically the prophet has this kind of experience, they see themselves and the universe in a whole different way, they kind of fall in love with the beauty of it all. And then they open their eyes and they look around at everybody. And what do they see? It's like it's a disaster. They had this beautiful vision of the interconnectedness of all reality. And then we're all fighting each other all the time, and we're all mistreating each other, and we're worshiping, in the case of the Hebrew prophets, we're worshiping idols, or in the case of us, we worship the superficial, and we have pride, all this stuff that we do. And of course, so the prophet has this immediate experience of, what's up with this? I can't stand this. It's like this beautiful painting, and it was on the wall, and I loved it, and somebody slashed it with a knife. And so that's where you get this kind of sense of outrage and this sense of come on, gang, what are you up to? You got to do better than that. But the thing that's interesting, and I think it's really important to remember, is that it's not that the prophet says, I know what's right, and I will now bring you to that. The prophet is actually speaking from a very different place. Because in order to have the kind of life-transforming experience that the prophets have, they have to be open. They have to be vulnerable. They have to be ready to let something new in and let their worldview be transformed. And this is unusual, because I don't know about you, but I live in a world that's frightening. Disease and death and car accidents and violence and terrorism, and and that's only on the outside, right? And then there's all the stuff that happens inside me. I am not nearly as evolved as I would like to be, and there's some thoughts and impulses and feelings that I don't like at all. So what I do, and I think what we all do, is we develop walls, defenses, so that we don't get quite so terrified. So we block out this sort of thing, and we block out this thing, and we wall ourselves off from feelings that we have. And it works in a certain way. Temporarily, it does keep us kind of feeling safe. But ultimately, this kind of energy, it means that we can't move forward. There's no spiritual path that moves you forward by pushing things away. The only energy that moves you forward is this, offering and receiving. So I think that vulnerability is actually the heart of prophetic speaking. And yet you might say, if I were reading your mind, you might say, well, I think about Jesus, throwing the money changers out of the temple. He did not sound like he was wishy-washy and vulnerable, right? He was all upset. He was like, oh, come on, what's happening? But in fact, what's interesting is the sureness that the prophet expresses is not the sureness that he or she or they is right. It's the sureness that the prophet is speaking on behalf of something bigger. And that if they go off the rails, if they start saying stuff that doesn't make sense, they will be brought back again. And they might conceptualize it as, God will speak to me again, or they might conceptualize it as the universe will speak through my teacher or my guru, or they might say it will simply come from my fellow people. But they know that they are not speaking on behalf of their individual selves, and if they trust enough, the universe will bring them where they need to go. So what looks like kind of fire and brimstone certainty is actually humility. Vulnerability plus trust. It's just humility. So that's what I think the prophetic voice is all about. And there's only 2 questions left that we can answer. At least there's only 2 left that I'm going to answer. One of which is, who are the prophets for our age? Jennifer asked, about prophecy for this year. Who's going to be the people who are going to speak like that? And the second is, what are they going to say? Well, there's only one answer to the first one. It's you. Who else? Right? This prophet always speaks to the local conditions, what's happening right there, right in front of them. Nobody else knows your local conditions except for you. Right? You know the community, you live here, you know what your experience is like, you know the people that you interact with, you're it. So, like it or not, gang, prophets are you. Right? That's it. And the second thing, what are you going to say? I can't, unfortunately, put myself in your position. I don't know your lives and your conditions and your communities. But I do have a few suggestions if you're thinking of prophetic things that you might want to talk about. At least these are what I would offer you based on my travels around to lots of UU congregations. And I would say there are 3 things that we need to be hearing. The first one is that we, and by this I'm really talking about Unitarian Universalists, although I think we could extend it to all people, but let's focus on us for the moment. I think we need to realize that we are just not as special as we think. We have this kind of idea that we got it together and we're intellectual and we don't believe in fairy tales and and we read the Bible, we don't see any Trinity in there. So now on the one hand, it's true that I think our Unitarian forebears who read the Bible and didn't find the Trinity, they were actually doing some pretty cool stuff. But right now, I think in our congregations there is this sense that we're special in a way that really limits us. That sense that we are so special and we have something so precious leads us to try to protect what we have and cling to it and hold on to it and wall it off until this is what our congregations look like. Right? Now, it's true we have beautiful things happening in our congregations, but the only way that they can be vibrant and they can be alive and Unitarian Universalism can survive, I think, is if we offer them to the world. We had a time when we could kind of exist in a vacuum, this congregation and that one, and we could have our own thing. That time is gone. We have to open our hearts and our hands, and we have to step out of our sanctuaries, beautiful as they are, and we have to join hands with the people who are around us, no matter what it makes us feel like. That's the first thing. The second thing I think we need to hear is that I think we need to we need to learn to let go of our individual agendas. Because we have this tradition in our movement that, we have this first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all human beings, which is, of course, essential to everything we do. But we interpret it as meaning every individual should have the right to do exactly what they want, and they should do exactly what they want, and they should advocate for what they want, and our congregations should be collections of people all advocating for what they want. And there's nothing wrong with that, really, except that it takes us and spreads our energies in a million directions. I was telling some of you earlier about one of my favorite congregations. I don't have favorite congregations, but I love this congregation. 150 people, 53 committees. It's like, what are they doing? It's anybody who has an idea, if they can get one more person, that's a committee, right? And so their energy is spread all over the place, and it has absolutely no impact on anything. What if these people were to say, I know this is my pet thing, and I know I have passion for this, but that's really not what's needed at this moment. What's needed is to trust in the collective goodwill of my congregation, of my community, and see what's needed and offer that. What could happen with them? What could happen with you if you did that? And if you have trouble deciding, am I really clinging to an individual agenda, or am I really speaking on behalf of the common good? Just monitor yourself and check and see how agitated you are. Because the more agitated you are, the more that indicates you have a personal investment in what's going on. And it's not about what's good for everybody. Just a thought. And then finally, here's the last thing that I want to say, is that, it may seem contradictory to the last two things that I said, but the third thing that we need to know, and we need to know it with our bones, not just in our heads, we need to know that we are the most important thing in the universe. I mean, yes, the universe is a big place, and we occupy just one tiny little parking lot in it, and we're here only for a brief time, and then we're gone. But every way in which you interact with people, every thought, every touch, these hold the keys. These hold the keys, because it's nothing that can change the world except your intention. We all know that you can look at somebody and you can say hi, and you can say hi, and you can say hi. I mean, you can do so much with even just a word. Think of what you can do with a life. The only difference in creating destruction and creating love is your intent and your willingness to meet your own resistances and to come back again and say, wow, am I really doing the loving thing here? Can I let go? Can I trust? Can I open up to the greater energy? We, each one of us, we hold the keys to life, to salvation, to grace, if you like religious language. Why not use them for good? What's stopping you? I would say there's nothing that can stop you. So as far as I'm concerned, we are the new prophets. We're the greatest of prophets. At least we have the capacity to be. All we need to do is let ourselves matter, let ourselves connect with each other, let ourselves trust, let go of some habit, and open our hands. May you be those prophets. May you be that which brings love into the world. May it be so, and amen.